You feel this nervousness on the phone there?
Sir, I've been trying to make an urgent phone call up there.
Well, I don't think it's something I want to do on an overseas phone.
You gotta make some phone calls. Hang up the phone. Prank caller. Prank caller.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to Packernet After Dark. This is the call-in show, the Packernet Podcast Network. If you'd like to call in, if you'd like to participate in the show, please feel free to do so. The phone number here is 608-501-0718. New callers go to the front of the line. We don't have any new callers, but we got Daniel from California. What's going on, homie?
Hey, I discovered O-line efficiency on PFF, and I felt pretty validated because I got this thing about the offensive line in Chicago and everything, and how it wasn't that bad last year when they had 68 sacks. And when I watched, I tallied up what I thought was their line's fault, because I went and watched, because I'm like, this guy isn't that good. I watched it all, and I had it counted for 35. That was the number. It's ingrained in my brain. 35 sacks is the number that was the offensive line's fault. And when I go and I look on the offensive line efficiency, it says 37. So I was like, I was pretty good that Caleb Williams sucked last year. And the main reason why they only had 25 sacks this year was because you get Joe Thuney, an All-Pro, you get Dahlman, who's Pro Bowl center, and then you get a guy that's, when he's healthy, is a C-level guard, just a baseline guard. But when you're next to two Pro Bowlers, it's pretty easy, right? So I watched so much Caleb Williams, like, when I did this, just because I'm just like,
yeah, I get it.
I'm tired of hearing these guys, and it's just.
And I apologize if I'm putting that poison in you. I shouldn't, I don't want to cause anybody pain. It is what it is.
Like, when he only had that many sacks last year, I'm like, all right, what happened? It's just the stupid interior pressure, man. He doesn't like it at all. He doesn't want to, step up and, navigate a pocket. If he's got people.
No, he's looking for an excuse to bail. There's a lot of quarterbacks that are like that. They're begging for a reason to bail out of the pocket. He's like holding the ball, just waiting until somebody gives him an excuse to run around and do something crazy. It's not an abnormal thing. There are certain guys that do it. They're just not usually very successful. Now, that doesn't mean Caleb will be bad. Maybe he can be an outside the pocket phenom for the rest of his career, or maybe he'll just get significantly better at the whole standing in the pocket and being a quarterback thing. Either way, there is a path. So I'm not denying that, but there's definitely reason for skepticism.
In his face, he hates it. More so than any of that, when you actually look at the EPA versus pressure and when hit, he's okay with pressure, but he hates being hit, and the fastest way to getting towards him is up the middle. So that just tells us that we're just going to have to put Micah when he's healthy in the A-gap, and he's going to run right at him. That's it, the only way. But having fun, go Pack Go.
And hopefully we got a couple studs on the interior. We won't even need to do that. You know what I mean? I'm pretty excited about what we've got on the interior there from a pass rush standpoint. And, once we get Micah back, that should hopefully help out a lot, especially if there's any, without Micah, maybe they're doubling up a little bit on the interior or whatever. It's hard to do that when you got Micah Parsons, though. That's generally where your extra attention is going to go. And yeah, as far as the Bears' offensive line, that's certainly one of the things you could look at. We talked about the Rams and a bunch of their stuff and the Bears' defensive turnovers and all that. There's a lot of areas that you look at. Not many things stay exactly the same. I guess one way to look at it is that most things don't end up being exactly what they should be, right? Most things either end up underperforming or overperforming. And you don't know whether next year they're going to overperform or underperform, but generally you expect a movement toward the middle, right? So in other words, if you just think about it in three spaces, you got negative, neutral, or positive. If you're positive, there's 1 in 3 chance that you stay positive and a 2 in 3 chance you regress to either the average or to the negative. It's just one way to think about it. You don't know what's going to happen, but you would generally expect to move in the opposite direction. That works in both ways. Somebody underperforms their average or whatever due to injury or whatever the case. If you were a betting man, you would probably bet on them coming back a little bit. And I think the Bears offensive line is one of the overperformers. I think they just had a good unit. And a lot of times when you have a good unit, everybody, rising tide lifts all boats kind of thing. Everybody kind of benefited from that. And yeah, I think the anchor to that is gone now. And so not only do you lose that, but I think a lot of the people around him, around the center spot, are going to kind of regress back to what they have been, which is not quite as good as they were last year. So, Garrett in Southern Illinois.
Hey, Ryan, it's Garrett from Southern Illinois.
Yo.
As usual, I'm just a person with a lot of time on my hands and can't help with brainstorming ideas that every time I listen to your podcast, another one pops up. So here it goes.
Okay.
You were talking about, Facebook and what it'll be like 6 generations from now, people, your family looking back and seeing what you were doing and everything. And it got me thinking, it would be cool if you could have like Sal do throwbacks as if Sal was living in 1967 when the Ice Bowl happened. And he does a podcast about the Ice Bowl, or he does a podcast about, say, when the Packers won the Super Bowl with Brett Favre. Just have him go back in time in that era and talk as if he's in that era, as if it's happening right at that moment, like he's time traveling, and just have him do podcasts about very significant moments in Packers history. That would be kind of interesting. And we'd see the evolution of Sal from age to age to age, how he would talk differently a little bit, or how he would bring up, instead of, a generator, he'd be, talking about a hand crank auger. You know what I mean? So just something to think about for him to do every once in a while when certain dates come up about specific events in Packers history. So there you go. I'm out.
Yeah, we just did, obviously it wasn't the same, but just had Sal kind of relive the last Super Bowl that the Packers won. I thought that was kind of an interesting wrinkle kind of thing. Could possibly try something like that. That could be pretty interesting. The cool thing about a lot of that is many of us never lived through the Ice Bowl. A lot of us listening to this. And so, yeah, and kind of doing what I did, with the other one, but like you said, kind of narrating it in a way that could be educational, kind of using the history, doing the research to learn about the time and what people were thinking and saying and all that, to make it hopefully not confusing, like what the heck is going on. And, I might have to jump on in the beginning and explain what the heck is going on. But no, I think that could be kind of fun. Garrett, part 2.
Part 2, just to show you how good my memory is, Ryan.
Yeah.
I do remember the podcast where I told you need to eat at 17th Street Barbecue. It's a world champion barbecue restaurant in Murfreesboro, Illinois, which if you were going to visit your sister, which she does live somewhere near Carlisle. I remember you saying that. So my memory is spectacular.
Yeah.
If you were to drive through our area, there's some great places to visit, a lot of historical places and places to eat. So it sounds like you need to take another trip to Florida, but this time skip visiting your parents and visit me instead.
Well, that's certainly an option. Like I said, we did really enjoy that, going down there to I forget the name of the town there, but no, it was nice. It was a really nice area. People down there are very nice. I remember being very surprised. So first of all, I right after high school, we used to drive down to SIU because a lot of the people I went to high school with, and I went to high school in Illinois, for whatever reason, they all went to SIU. So that was my first exposure to college and craziness, and that was wild. That was a wild time down at SIU. And I kind of took that energy to Whitewater. But anyways, I went down there for that, went to some Saluki football games, and was very surprised to find out, obviously when you go down, you don't really know because it's just college kids from all over, probably northern parts of Illinois and whatnot. But I remember I was working one of the jobs that I had, and this lady had a very thick southern accent. I asked her where she was from. She said Illinois. I'm like, no, but where are you originally from? She's like, Illinois. And I'm like, okay, but you have a southern accent, so why? She's, yeah, I'm Southern Illinois. Like, what are you talking about? And that's the same with Indiana, man. You cross a certain line, and you're just in the South. So I really do like it down there. You got to cross that line, wherever that weird line is, to where you get into the South, Southern Illinois, Southern Indiana. It's a different world. It's a beautiful combination of like still being in the North and whatever comes with that, but also having like the Southern charm and hospitality and great food and all that. So it's a nice little sweet spot that I think is kind of slept on a little bit. All right, let's take a break because we got a couple Bruces coming up, and we'll be right back.
Oh, Mr. Pack Daddy,
Hey.
Ryan, this is Bruce. You went down the Locked On Network rabbit hole that I made sure to not listen to at least 3 years ago. I mean,
And I'm very sorry because I got a pile of them just sitting off to the side. Tomorrow there's not going to be a podcast. It's already 8:00, and I'm freaking tired. I whatever. But the point is, I was gonna just dive into that because, like, I think I had mentioned this. I have the AI's name is Echo, and Echo goes and finds me stuff looking through YouTube and articles and all this stuff, and I would just like, here's a take, and I'm like, oh, that's a crazy take, and I click on that, and it opens up a YouTube link. And then I go down here, I'm like, oh, here's another stupid take. I'll click on that, it opens another. And I had 4 of them. It was all 4 the same video from Locked On. And it's funny because the title's always like the Eagles and the Chargers. And I'm like, what are you trashing the Packers for so much, dude? But those guys just got it in for the Packers. I don't know why. Obviously, Bukowski's a Packer fan, and he's over at Locked On. But the other guys, and like I said, the Titans guy and a couple of, they're always just taking shots at the Packers. Like, what is your freaking problem, dude?
I mean, they're all morons,
But-
and the reason that they all talk poorly about the Packers because our Packers defense person on that network
Oh, come
is
on.
Peter Bukowski, the
Oh,
biggest ass
no,
that ever
no,
existed
no.
that even tells fans to not talk about his opinion.
Oh, no,
Just
no.
don't believe what. Just don't disagree.
As I've said, I'm not interested in freaking battles and rivalries and whatnot. So let's take it easy. We're all friends here.
Agree with him because that's what he does for a living.
Oh.
That's what you're dealing with right now, man. God, if we could only have like our own Packers people support the team the way we try, we wouldn't have to be these like white knights that are getting demolished by every single person because of it. Good God. Oh. Anywho, bye.
I'm glad you're a member of the Anywho Club. I have been appreciative. Bruce has been going wild on social media, and I don't know if it's just the algorithm is feeding it to me now, but I went on social media today, and people are going to war, man. So I don't know if it was Bruce lighting a fire or if it's my people lighting a fire. I saw a couple people on there talking about what I had specifically said, talking a little bit more about the consistency stuff. Ryan on this podcast said X, Y, and Z. But I'm just going, and then I'm seeing like Eagles people on there because Jordan Love just made the top 100 list at like 71 or 79 or something. And there's even Eagles people. I forgot what he said. It was something like this guy's PR is trash or something like that. You know what I mean? Like And that's exactly what I've been saying. The PR, the hype around this guy is just, it's so non-existent. There's so many negative narratives around the Packers, and that means the faces of that are going to bear the brunt of that. People are uninspired by the Packers. Well, that label is going to fall on primarily Jordan Love and Matt LaFleur. Those guys are at the front of this whole thing. So ultimately, look, at the end of the day, this is going to come down to this team needs to beat the crap out of people. It's stupid. And this is, again, where Bears fans are freaking idiots. They constantly, oh, Jordan's better? Oh, interesting. So I'm guessing he beat him in the playoffs. No. He doesn't beat anyone. Teams beat teams, you freaking moron. But this is the stupidity of the larger public. And ultimately, the Packers are going to have to start demolishing people. And then the label of the Packers being good will be bestowed on Jordan Love and Matt LaFleur. Matt LaFleur will be a genius again because he goes back and forth between being a super genius and a guy that should be fired. Super genius, guy should be fired. It's so stupid. And it just depends on how well the Packers are playing. And the reality is the quality of Matt LaFleur and the quality of Jordan Love is almost in no way impacted by the way the team is playing. There are multiple factors. Listen, Jordan Love is Jordan Love, and he's good. Even when the team is losing, he is a good quarterback. There are a lot of other factors involved. Not to say he's always good, right? But this is where we get to inconsistency, where whatever his inconsistency is, it's less than what you find from other people. We've been over this, but it still does exist. But no, I'm all for it. We gotta go to war out there and keep fighting the good fight. And we just ultimately we need the backup, because if we start running our mouth and the Packers come out and just lay a freaking egg, it's not that we're going to be wrong, but we're going to lose the war, right? It's not going to be because Jordan Love is bad. It's going to be all the other factors, but it's not going to matter. We're not going to win that war on social media. The Packers are going to be mid, and it's going to be Jordan Love that is carrying that stupid label. It's just the way it goes.
Hey, Ryan, just going back. I finished the pod, Packernet After Dark, and you talked about that political theory. And this is something that I've run into with my employees and just in general with trying to have a conversation about anything in general. Including politics, and I'm not going to talk politics, but it applies pretty broadly to what you're talking about in the sense of, I think the issue right now with society in general is the fact that most people, I'd say a majority of people, especially younger generations, were not and have not been taught how to critically think.
Yeah.
What does critically thinking do? It is, and you form an opinion based on what you think is true. And then you go on social media and your algorithm sees what you see, so you get the same thing, and the only thing you're going to get is your side of the story to validate your logic.
Well, and we're seeing that, right? I mean, just one example is look at the massive split between men and women right now, boys and girls, young people. It's growing by the day. And a lot of that is going to be algorithmic and whatnot. I've been thinking about this in terms of, so when we grew up, I think, Bruce, you and I are about the same age. I was in, middle school, high school before you started seeing like YouTube type videos or whatever. And it was really incredible because it exposed us to things that I had never seen before. And I start watching videos of these really brilliant people, and it's like, holy cow. And the crazy thing is, and I've kind of mentioned this, but the young people coming up are scary smart. And so what you're going to end up having is almost kind of like what you find in a capitalist society, right? Where as wealth grows, it doesn't grow equally. It grows exponentially. Right, so if everybody grows 10x, the guy with $1 million and the guys with $10, they both go up 10x, but the guy with $1 million is significantly, you know what I mean? And I think you're going to find that here. especially okay, so the young people, they grow up. Some people grow up playing video games, they don't learn a damn thing. Some people sit on YouTube and they absorb information. People that have unbelievable memories, they can remember every single fact and detail. They're very logically inclined. These young people coming up are staggering how much they know and how smart they are and stuff. I don't think they have like the finesse of some of the guys that I grew up with. They haven't fully formed their things over a lifetime. But in terms of just like memorizing facts and all that, they're remarkable. And then I think about AI, and it's just going to accelerate that. The people that really don't use it, they're not going to engage. The young people, whatever, they're going to go through their life playing video games, whatever the case. And I'm not knocking it. Video games are fun, but you're going to have that. And then you're going to have, again, the people who want to learn. And AI is psychotic in terms of just whatever you want, I'll give it to you. And so the haves and have-nots thing is going to be massive. So you're going to have, the point is the extremes are going to be sharpened or widened. You know, again, I'll go back to when we were younger, the differences. It's so funny because, you know, you think back, like in college, even just college, we're talking 2005, 2006-ish, or, you know, whatever, in that range. The differences between like Republican and Democrat, it felt at the time like there were massive differences. Now you look at it, it's the same. Like it was not a big difference. You look at the differences now, it's shocking. And you're right, it's algorithmic. But then also, again, not only is it algorithmic, but the ability to learn and grow your knowledge about this thing is going to accelerate you out in that direction. And so ultimately, the polarization is going to be massive. Not necessarily for everybody, but a lot of people are consuming a ton of things, even people that aren't necessarily even interested in growing their, not like, you know, some people are going to sit there and read legal documents and everything else to become a super genius in a certain area or whatever. But even people not doing that, you're flipping through TikTok and it's pushing some political stuff, whatever it happens to be. And depending on your disposition, you probably see something, you're like, oh, I like that. If you're a more gentle type of person, like a female, and this is where the differences, I think, are broadening, you see something sweet and nice and caring, and you like that. If you're a dude, you see something that's like hardcore and like serious and like in your face and F you, and you're like, yeah, I like that. And so it starts feeding you that, and then you see this divide. It makes me sad because I look at it and I'm like, how are we going to have, you know, relationships? It's important. The young people need to come together and be married and have children and carry on a beautiful life with the white picket fence and all that stuff. We can't have that if everybody hates everybody. But I think, again, I think not only is that like that, it's going to continue to get worse. As people get just more and more informed. And not only that, I mean, you look at how things have changed. Like I said, the young people, and when I say young now, I'm talking like 18 to 25-year-olds that are on YouTube dominating these intellectual spaces, which again, it's nowhere near as clean and polished and cool as the older cats that did it when I was watching debates, people that knew how to do it respectfully. Now it's people on Twitch or whatever just screaming, swearing at each other, but they're really smart. But again, what's happened? They grew up with YouTube. What are kids growing up with today? TikTok. So instead of these long form things, it's just 1,000 videos over and over and over and over and over, and they stare at it all day long. I don't know exactly what we're talking about anymore. I wanted to kind of offload that because I've been thinking about it, but that's my expectation is there's going to be another generation. And that generation is going to be even more informed, whether correct or incorrect. And it's just going to be massively polarized because that algorithm is going to pull people in all kinds of crazy directions, but in stark, very distant directions, which is also where, again, and this kind of comes back to football a little bit, when we talk about, like, talk to Bears fans or you talk to a positive fan talks to a negative fan, it seems like you're talking to an alien. What are you talking about? Or like me talking to somebody who says stats have ruined the NFL. I don't understand how your brain works. But, you know, you spend 40 years kind of drifting in one direction. Somebody else has spent 40 years drifting in another direction. You come together and yeah, it's going to be like, what the heck have you been doing? We all went very different directions. Anyways, sorry, Bruce. You kind of touched on something that's been on my brain for a minute, so I kind of hijacked that, and I apologize.
Whether it's true or not, and the logic is flawed, it doesn't matter. Just like you said, if you see something enough times, it's going to be true, because they don't take the time to critically think the way that most of us do, that have some sort of brain cell, to go out and do some research. It literally takes 2 seconds to go to Google or anywhere else to either validate or form your own opinion of something.
That's the other danger of like TikTok. I saw something the other day. Somebody quoted a stat, and I thought that's like it's not somebody that I agree with, but I'm not just going to disagree with the stat because it's kind of compelling if it's true. So I went over to AI and I was like, "Is this true?" And it said no. It wasn't like 86%. It was like 6. And I'm like, "Are you sure?" Because I'm kind of pushing back a little bit because could be wrong. I don't know. And I tried a couple different AIs. I tried some different things. And ultimately what they started saying is like, no, this is a popular thing on TikTok, but it's not true. It's actually this. And this is a very prominent, very young, but, talented in terms of his memory is very good or whatever. But again, you can just tell based on like the specific stats that he's using, a lot of his information is coming from TikTok, which is stupid and scary.
You look at both sides and make a decision based on that component. So looking at both sides and forming an opinion as opposed to having your opinion given to you. And that's what's happening with Jordan Love. It's exactly what's happening with the Packers. It's exactly what happens with every single issue, which is why you don't talk politics, you don't talk religion, you don't talk those things, because most people are not capable of critically thinking. And it's always a larger majority of people that do that. So the dumbest people are always the loudest. We know this.
Right.
Like, it is just, I think most people that have...
That's a legitimate theory that I had at one point, and I probably shouldn't necessarily share it. I'll leave it alone. But I will say, I was in a locker room one day, and there were some people that were just so loud, Like, there was this guy that just the way he talked, he was just like, why are you talking so loud? And it just occurred to me, it's like, I wonder if there's a correlation between like volume and IQ. You know what I mean? Like, why are you so loud? I don't understand.
Brain cell, try not to engage. And when you do, you run into it. You just start getting tired of having to refute stuff. And they're not going to believe what you say because they're going to see it somewhere else and say, well, see, so-and-so said this. Right. So that's why it's true. Well,
and that brings me back to... again, like I said, I got into an argument on social media, and he was talking about like, well, I watched it, and I said, okay, well, I watched it, and I disagree. So now what do we do? I saw somebody today, and he might have been commenting in you, I don't know, but it was in this whole back and forth between Bears, Packers, whatever that I know you've been engaged in. I have, but it was a Bears fan that said something to the effect of, "Watch now as Caleb becomes better than Jordan." And I didn't comment, but because I knew this would just be it shouldn't be. It should be like a 1 or 2 comment exchange. But they never are. But my very obvious question is, based on what? Based on what? Why won't these people ever give me a metric? They will never give you a metric. Which one? Give me the metric. You're saying he's better. Based on what? Based on what? Right? What was it? Who's the one that kind of came up with that whole Socratic method? Socrates. I genuinely think it's a good method. I think there's too much like attacking, and instead you should be asking questions because you'll very quickly find out they don't have the answer. Caleb's better. How'd you come to that conclusion? Well, he won in the that playoff game. Okay. So do you believe that the quarterback who wins a head-to-head game is necessarily the better quarterback? Well, yeah, the quarterback's the most important position in football, and certainly wasn't our 31st ranked defense, is something else I saw somebody say. Okay, so how much responsibility does the quarterback bear for a win or loss? Is it like 90, 70, 50, 30? Where would you say it is? And then, whatever they say, which they probably would bail at this point. You're just being stupid. Blah, blah, blah. But if they continue, okay, so what percentage are they responsible for the quarterback? I don't know, 70%. Okay, how'd you come to that? How'd you arrive at that conclusion? You know what I mean? The bottom line is these people have no idea what they're talking about. They haven't put in the work. These are all belly up to the bar guys. They don't have the data. They hate the data because the data is homework that they don't want to do because they're lazy and they just want to talk ball and they just want to talk trash. And you going and using stats is like cheating in a game. We're playing a game. We're having a good time. We're talking ball. We're talking trash. And you go pulling up stats. That's cheating. That's basically, let's be honest, that's basically what we're talking about here. They don't like it. Problem is, I don't give a crap. I don't care. I will cheat all day long. It is cheating. You're right. I'm looking at the answer sheet. You're right. Caleb's going to be the best quarterback this year in the NFC North. Yeah? What's that based on? How are we going to determine by the end? What metric are we going to use to determine? And I almost guarantee you they're going to say something stupid. Like, look at yards, touchdowns, and touchdown to interception ratio or something. No, I don't want to play your game. That sounds like a bad, stupid plan.
Incessantly annoying at how much that happens. And it happens, like, literally, like I'll tell you, like with my employees, I tell them to do something. If they have to think outside of the box and they don't have, like, a specific way to look at a problem, you have to tell them what to do because they can't critically think to figure their way out of something most of the time. It's very few and far between, and I think that is the biggest issue. No critical thinking skills the way they used to be.
Yeah. Yeah, I get what you're saying. It's unfortunate. I mean, everybody's wired differently, but I do wish that we kind of pushed in that direction a little bit more. I saw something kind of funny that I kind of admire. He was a teacher, and it looked like he was in Africa. Dude was wearing a suit. He was all decked out, and all you could see was him, but he was in a classroom, had some kind of an African accent. I'm not adept enough at African dialects to know exactly where. But I thought it was interesting because, and he had a pretty big following, like 31,000 likes on this little clip. But he just had a list, and it said something like general knowledge. And it was like, who's the best singer of all time? Who is the greatest civil rights leader? Who is the greatest king of all time? And it was kind of subjective, obviously, but it was kind of interesting because I had to think hard. And then they'd come up with an answer. I'm like, duh. You know what I mean? But I just thought it was interesting because we do all this school crap and you're in high school and you're doing freaking trigonometry and all this stuff. And then you look at do you know the basics? Do you know the basics? And I don't know. I thought it was kind of cool that they were going through the most basic fundamental, like who's the greatest writer of all time. And I'm sitting here thinking who's that chick that wrote Frankenstein? Like I'm overcomplicating, and they're just like Shakespeare, and I'm like, oh, you stupid idiot. Greatest musician of all time. I'm like, I don't freaking know, dude. And they're just Mozart. I'm like, oh yeah, that's a good one. That's a good answer. Damn it. I don't know. I really like that. I thought that was cool. And again, as somebody that homeschools my kids, I look at stuff like that sometimes, and I'm like, I know my kids would be pretty good at some of those, but there's a couple I'm like, I barely could answer it, but I'm like, I think there's a little gap there, and we should work on that. So, yeah, to your point, I think there are some basics in terms of, we definitely, I really, if I could change anything in the certainly the public school system, I have no idea what they do in private school, but logic would be a top priority. I mean, it's so important. It's just the baseline fundamentals of how to think, It would just be so beneficial to so many people to just lay that foundation. I mean, what the heck are we doing in education if we don't lay down the foundation of how to think? I don't even understand what we're even trying to do. It's like trying to teach somebody to read without teaching them the ABCs. I don't understand what we're doing here. But anyways, no, I'm with you, and it is frustrating out there, but we're going to win the war, man, because we have the facts on our side and we're right. And we got to be careful, because numbers can be tricky and we can get caught up or whatever. We got to be diligent and make sure that we're not misrepresenting the data, because that can backfire quickly if we're the data people, which I will say again, the fact that Packer fans are becoming known as like these EPA nerds, it makes me so proud. I got to go find that guy that said you got to have a PhD to be a Packer fan these days, and I got to like frame that. I should make that my header on Twitter, because it made me so proud to see that. I love this fan base, man. I'm proud of everybody being the nerds, but you call it whatever you want. It's just being informed is all it is. It's just a baseline of I want to know what I'm talking about before I open my mouth. I mean, it's pretty straightforward stuff. And, that would have been hard to do in 1984 or even 1999. But in 2026, there's very little excuses. Hashmarks.io, by the way. Getting a little better every day. You can thank Bruce, by the way, for the update that made it more responsive on the mobile phones. So he's the one that hit me up and he's like, hey, dude, this looks like crap. So thought you should know. Oh, crap. You're right. So we got that up and running. And so anyway, check it out. If you have any questions, again, it's like ChatGPT, but for advanced stats. If you have any questions, it makes it so again, there's so much data out there everywhere, and it's not always easy to know what website do I go to, and a lot of them you need subscriptions. So you can go here. You do need a subscription, but you get 2 free questions, so you can try it out. But you can just go and ask in natural language, and it doesn't even have to be show me EPA. Just be like, who is the best quarterback in 2025? And it'll just pull up whatever stat. It'll probably show you like 3 different stats. Here's what they look like, and give you a little rundown and a nice little chart. Anywho, let's take our next break. We got a bunch of Andy from Kansas, so I gotta get a little coffee going, because I'm guessing Andy's gonna get. He's usually good with some brain teasers. That, or he says mean things about me. We'll take a break. We'll be right back.
Hi, Ryan. This is Sweaty, still stuck in Kansas.
What's up, Sweaty?
Hopefully these few phone calls will not be regretful on my part. We'll just see how they go.
Is what it is, dude.
I wanted to thank you for another good podcast about how too many fans get their thinking all messed up with just some of their negativity, especially. We really just got to keep hammering the truth out there. The Packers are a good team. They're a very good team. We keep making the playoffs. They can't be a bad team if we keep making the playoffs. That's just a straight up truth. Never stop saying it. Online, a lot of times, especially after a loss, you get people that are just, as you know, just dumping on the team. And I try to, if I respond, with things, talk about how I enjoy the team, how there's things are still looking up, and the talent is still there even after a loss. And too many negative fans come back with things like, oh, you're just coping.
Right.
And maybe it's fans of other teams that just want to rag on the Packers.
Sure.
But, that whole thing, it's just a cope. It's not a cope to explain things that are actually true.
I will say, and I know this isn't a super nice thing to say, but saying things like you're coping, copium and all that, I'm sorry, that is a shock. It's just an IQ test. That's all it is, and you failed. You failed. Don't say things like that. It makes you look so unbelievably stupid. It just means I don't know what to say, and I have like 4 responses just ready to go in my brain, and when something happens that I don't like, I just push one of the buttons. You have I've seen more impressive things done by monkeys. You ever seen some of those things that the monkeys can do? They can like punch in a bunch of things and then get a treat. Significantly more brain power needed to do that than to say cope.
Not grasping at straws. I'm not saying, well, I hope that so-and-so just turns their entire game around and goes from being bad to being good. I guess that would be coping. I thought of the example of if you're out swimming and somebody comes there and starts to push you under the water, like what negative fans try to do with our hosts, and you fight back to not drown, is that a cope, or are you just joining the struggle to live? I think as fans, we have to keep up the life of our team, at least on the fan side of things, by pointing out things that are actually going to hopefully work. The last few days, I watched some of the World Cup. As much and as easy it is to make fun of soccer, one thing I did notice about fans is that even if they're close to scoring a goal, and there's a lot of misses in soccer,
Right.
sometimes bad misses, the fans seem to cheer more, even if the guy got close
Oh, yeah.
but didn't make it. I couldn't get on board with it as a soccer fan, but I guess I can see their point when it comes to not just being completely down on your team for not being perfect. So thanks a lot.
Yeah, I mean, as I've said, even for me as a non-soccer fan, you see those guys get close to scoring. It's like, oh man, and I can't speak to how fans react if you just miss badly. But yeah, to your point, from my very little exposure, which is almost nothing, I will say I haven't really noticed a whole lot of "you missed, you freaking idiot." It's more of like, "Oh, that was so close." You know what I mean? I'm sure there's some stupid idiot talk. I gotta get plugged into who's playing when. I think I've already missed. Not that I super care about every game, but I think I'm on with Norway now. I think that's my thing because you want to talk about propaganda. That big Viking freak, that dude, some of the videos coming out, like him with the techno Viking. I don't know if you saw that video. That was so funny. But yeah, they got some great that and the rowing thing and all that. They've been killing it on the propaganda. So I'm probably going Norway. Argentina seems pretty dope, just because they got the freaking superstar guy, and I don't know, they seem kind of cool. I don't even know necessarily who's left, but I can spread my allegiances around a little bit just to what do you call it? Hedge a little bit. But yeah, I'll see what's going on out there. It's a good point. And I know it's blasphemous to say so, but maybe we can learn something from that.
So I'm not a negative fan. I don't plan on being a negative fan. If you recall 2018, I remember you mentioning how this was, I think, after McCarthy got fired, how you believed that McCarthy stopped grinding.
Mm-hmm.
You used that word, grinding. McCarthy used to be someone who was a grinder as a coach. He just kept at it, and then he got comfortable.
Your guys' memory is impressive. I generally remember that situation. Using the word grinding. It's incredible that you guys remember this stuff.
Kind of went. That would maybe be one of the things that would turn me kind of negative to this version of the Packers. I don't think I'm there yet at all, because I think the Packers really are grinding. I think LaFleur is still grinding. I don't see him letting up. Love is still trying to refine his game. That's very, very clear. I just think that Packers fans should look and see, there's things that do improve from year to year. We're not running the same plays all of the time. It's not the same story all the time, so you can't expect the same disappointment, or really any disappointment if you look at it in a reasonable way. I think the only thing that would make me a negative fan is if it was clear that coaches and players started to believe their own propaganda, right? The hype, right? A couple football examples. Dan Campbell, right, was praised up and down for being so aggressive on fourth down, and that really fell apart last year. And I don't know this for sure, but I'm kind of wondering, did he start to believe in the propaganda of Dan Campbell going on fourth down is a good thing? If you start to believe it, that's when I think you fall for your own kind of tricks or whatever, right? If Ben Johnson begins to believe that he is a comeback coach, meaning if he gets into a situation where they're losing, it's just going to work out fine because that's just the kind of coach that he is. If he starts to actually believe it, then there's a big problem. Ted Thompson, towards the end of his tenure, was like that. You know, he didn't do well in the first round. But there was always those late round picks, and especially a lot of the undrafted free agents that made the team. And it's like, oh, he found another diamond in the rough. And I don't know, to me, it seemed like he was almost trying to do that. Like he believed that that was kind of his role as general manager. And I think towards some of those later years, our team didn't have a lot of upfront talent because it just seemed like there was too much effort going into the late round guys. Just a few examples of believing your own propaganda. But
Oh, I thought you said but. You said bye, I believe. I definitely remember those days, and I remember that feeling where it just kind of felt like everybody, and I haven't mentioned it in a while, but that was kind of a narrative for quite a while, is that it just felt like everybody got comfortable. But yeah, I mean, narratives definitely can come and go. I mean, I suppose some could possibly stick, but Caleb is the Iceman based on what he did in one season. We'll see how that goes, and so Ben Johnson, same thing with the aggression, and that was or with Dan Campbell in the aggression, but it was Ben Johnson at the time. But you're right. I mean, it's a great thing. But I remember everybody saying this is like, I think it was Ben Johnson's maybe his last year in Detroit. I'm not sure, so I don't know who you blame for it. I'm guessing it would be Ben Johnson, but prior to the playoffs, they started getting really aggressive and really stupid. They were getting so cute. And I remember I thought it, and then a bunch of other people started saying it as well. The idea that this is going to hurt you. Like at some point, this is really going to be a big negative. And sure enough, they get into the playoffs, and that cuteness, that going for it on fourth, they converted like none of them. It was shocking how few they ended up converting, and it was just a disaster. And in terms of believing, nobody believes more than Caleb and Ben Johnson. They are absolute true believers in themselves, and I genuinely hope it leads to their downfall. No doubt about it. We got a couple more. Andy from Kansas says, I think we can sneak another one in here. Let's at least do one more.
so I'm wondering what other listeners of this show, what do they do to celebrate a regular season win? Or to celebrate a playoff win, or what do you do when they lose in the regular season or lose in the playoffs? People could call in and talk about that. That might be an interesting thing to find out about each other here. For me, the worst losses, regular or playoff, it doesn't make a difference to me, but the worst ones, it's not so much when the team doesn't win. It's when it seems like the team just won't do the things it needs to do to win. Like the Cleveland Browns loss last year was pretty frustrating. The Eagles loss was not as frustrating because we just had so many injuries, I think, at the time. Tying the Dallas Cowboys was not particularly frustrating for me. I mean, they have a high-powered offense. We have a high-powered offense, and nobody won that game. But it's almost like, well, just blow for blow. I don't think I really expected anything different in that game. Getting ready for every game as a fan, for me, it's I look at a few things leading up to it, listen to what some of the people say, podcasts or whatever, and I kind of come up with these short lists of, okay, so in this game, if we do these things, whatever they happen to be for that particular game, and they work, there's a pretty good chance we're going to win. But if other things kind of fall apart, I think that we probably will lose this game. And it's not like those specifics really ever bear out when the game actually occurs. But I don't know. To me, it's just kind of one of those, you prepare yourself for either one, and you have reasons for that. It's not just, I feel like this is going to be a loss, or we never play well in this state after this month. Like, that's just trivial. Look at the stuff that we know about, put a few thoughts in there, but, just, I don't know, kind of be smart about it, I guess. Unless it's bad refereeing. Bad refereeing will bother me for weeks afterward, because, like, the rules are pretty clear. If you don't bother to enforce the rules, then it was a particular failure when you could have succeeded. Those are the kinds of things that bother me quite a bit. All right, bye.
Yeah, I've seen a few keys to the game. In fact, I think Bruce, you do that, don't you? I think if I recall right, I remember that Bruce throws that down prior to the game, keys to the game kind of thing. I don't do that quite as formally, but I do. I know that that's something that generally I will look at in terms of, here's the matchup, and more or less how you win and lose. But it's not a terrible idea, and I get what you mean in terms of just not living up to basic expectations becomes the massive frustration. And that is true. I mean, tying that back into what I was talking about before, I guess the only caveat, and it's 100% true that if you can't, like as a kicker, I expect you to make like a 35-yarder, and if you miss, you frickin', it's just unacceptable is the bottom line. I guess the only caveat I'd throw in to tie it in with what I've been talking about before, these last couple days or whatever, we have to understand also that the unacceptable is the norm. The kicker's going to miss 35-yarders, and the quarterback's going to miss the wide open guy, and the receiver's going to drop the easy pass, and the pass rusher is going to get to the quarterback and he's going to slip through his arms. The unacceptable is going to happen, and that's part of football. But no, I think in general it's a good idea to kind of set up something in our mind. It's so tough because I'm trying to all this time set up very logical, rational, exactly what you're talking about, setting up sort of these barriers or these foundations that we should be able to stand on, so that when we watch a football game we can be not so crazy. But that's just not how football works, at least not for me, and I don't know that I necessarily want it to change. I know it needs to change a little bit. I need to be a little less crazy, but you got to allow yourself to be a little bit nuts. But like I said, within 24 hours we got to start breaking it down a little bit. But no, I think you're right. I think that there are probably some things that we should set up prior to in our minds. It reminds me of one of the and you can call it cope if you want, but one of the things that people say that I genuinely find to be profound, even though it's not, is we'll end up losing a game and you get ticked off, and we're sitting at 4-3 or something like that, and somebody will say you can't get to 11-6 without 6 losses, and it is probably annoying to negative fans, and it to some degree is stupid and is cope, and it's like, well, that doesn't excuse the blah 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 blah, but there is truth to it. There is a again, getting back to what I said about we can't expect perfection. We have to understand that this great outcome that we're all striving for, which let's just say it's 11-6. I think that's how many games are in a season, right? I'm still stuck on like the 16-game season, so I get confused sometimes. But there is something profound hidden in there, that it is a messy thing, but the ultimate positive outcome does include a lot of negative. And so we can't get of the mind that when I see something negative, I have the right to lash out and say everybody should be fired and this is unacceptable. No, it is acceptable. There's tolerance here. There is a tolerance here. So, anywho, I'm going to leave it at that. I'm falling asleep and my wife is announcing we all need to get upstairs and watch America's Got Talent, so I need to get her in here. You all have a good rest of your night. I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.